I used to think I knew what love looked like. 3 years with Lydia felt like proof that I had found it. We were planning a wedding counting down to forever. But recently something changed. She grew distant, always tired, always busy. I told myself it was work stress, wedding jitters. I trusted her completely. Then one Wednesday afternoon I came home early and overheard her on the phone with her best friend. What she said shattered everything I believed about us, about her, about the life we were building together. Before I take you back to that moment, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? New York, Texas? Maybe somewhere across the ocean. If you have ever had your trust broken by someone you loved, hit that like button, so I know I am not alone in this. And please subscribe to this channel because sometimes the most painful stories teach us the most valuable lessons. Now, let me tell you about the afternoon that changed my life. The afternoon I realized that the woman I was about to marry had been lying to me for 9 months. I met Lydia on a Saturday morning 3 years ago at a small coffee shop in Portland, Oregon. I was 27 then, working as a software engineer, living a pretty quiet life. That morning I was rushing to grab my usual black coffee before heading to meet some friends. I was not paying attention, checking my phone, and I bumped right into someone. My coffee went everywhere, splashing all over this woman's book. I felt like such an idiot. She looked up at me, and instead of getting angry, she just laughed. It was the kind of laugh that made you want to laugh too, even when you had just ruined someone's day. Her name was Lydia. She worked in marketing at a local tech company. I offered to buy her a new book and another coffee. She said yes. We ended up talking for 3 hours straight. The conversation just flowed. We talked about everything from our favorite movies to our biggest fears. By the time we left that coffee shop, I knew I wanted to see her again. She felt like home even though I had just met her. Our first year together was everything you hope for when you fall in love. We spent weekends exploring the Pacific Northwest, hiking trails we had never been on, finding little towns we had never heard of. Lydia taught me how to cook. Before her, I could barely make a decent sandwich. She was patient with me in the kitchen, laughing when I burned things, celebrating when I finally made a pasta dish that actually tasted good. I taught her how to play guitar. She had always wanted to learn but never had the time. We would sit on our tiny apartment balcony and I would show her chords while the sun set over the city. We moved in together after a year of dating. The apartment was small, just a one-bedroom place in the Hawthorne district, but it felt perfect. We made it ours. We picked out furniture together, painted the walls a soft blue that Lydia loved, hung pictures from our trips. Every morning we would make pancakes together and sit on the couch planning our day. Those mornings were my favorite. Everything felt easy with her, natural, like we were meant to be doing this together. 9 months ago, I decided I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I had been thinking about it for months, but I wanted the proposal to be perfect. I took her back to Cannon Beach, the place where we had our very first real date outside of Portland. It was a spot that meant something to both of us. I waited until sunset, when the sky turned all shades of orange and pink, when the waves were crashing against the rocks in that rhythmic way that makes you feel small and infinite at the same time. I got down on one knee right there on the sand. I had bought her a ring with a blue sapphire, her favorite color. I was so nervous my hands were shaking. When I asked her to marry me, she cried. She said yes, without hesitating, threw her arms around me, and we just stood there holding each other while the ocean roared around us. I felt like the luckiest man alive. I truly believed we were going to grow old together, that this was just the beginning of our forever. I had no doubt in my mind that she loved me as much as I loved her. Looking back now, I wonder if she already knew then that something was changing. Or maybe it happened later. I will never really know. We set a wedding date for 4 months away. We wanted something small and intimate, just our closest family and friends. We found this beautiful rustic barn venue about 30 minutes outside of Portland. It had string lights and wooden beams and big windows that let in all this natural light. Lydia loved it immediately. We spent weeks picking out flowers, choosing the menu, making a playlist for the reception. At first, she was so excited about all of it. She would come home from work and show me pictures of dresses she liked, ask my opinion on centerpieces, talk about how beautiful everything was going to be. I loved seeing her happy like that. But then about 3 months before the wedding, things started to shift. Lydia began working later and later. She said there was a big project at her company, something that required extra hours. I believed her. Why would I not? She had never given me a reason to doubt her before. But the late nights turned into a pattern. She would come home exhausted, barely wanting to talk. When I asked her about the wedding plans, she would say she trusted me to make the decisions. At first I thought she was just stressed and trying to lighten her load. So I took over more of the planning. I picked the florist, confirmed the catering, handled the RSVPs. I did not mind. I wanted to help. 2 months before the wedding, I started noticing other things. Small things that individually did not mean much, but together they formed a picture I did not want to see. Lydia was always on her phone. She would be scrolling through something and smiling, this private little smile that used to be for me. When I asked what she was looking at, she would say it was just memes or something funny from work. But she would turn her phone away just slightly, like she did not want me to see. We stopped cooking together. She would come home and go straight to the bedroom saying she needed to rest. We barely had any physical intimacy anymore. The last time we had been close like that was 3 weeks prior, and even then it felt different. Distant. Like her mind was somewhere else. One night I tried to hold her while we were lying in bed. She said she was too tired. I tried again a few days later, suggesting we go out for dinner, just the two of us. She said she had too much work to catch up on. Every time I reached for her, there was an excuse. I started to feel like I was living with a stranger. This was not the woman I had asked to marry me. This was someone who was pulling away from me inch by inch, and I did not know how to stop it. I did not even know why it was happening. A week before everything fell apart, I met up with my best friend Marcus at our usual bar downtown. Marcus and I had been friends since college. He knew me better than almost anyone. He took one look at me and said I looked miserable. I tried to brush it off, but he kept pushing. Finally, I told him everything. The distance, the phone, the excuses. I told him I felt like Lydia did not want to be around me anymore, but I could not figure out what I had done wrong. Marcus listened then. He asked me something I had been avoiding. He said, "Have you tried talking to her directly?" I admitted I was scared. Scared of what she might say. Scared that if I asked the question, I would get an answer I could not take back. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder and told me that living in doubt was worse than knowing the truth. He said I deserved honesty, and so did she. That night, I decided I would talk to Lydia when I got home. I would sit her down and ask her what was going on. But when I got back to the apartment, she was already asleep. Or at least pretending to be. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and watched her for a minute. I wondered if I was overthinking everything. Maybe she really was just stressed. Maybe I was being paranoid. The next few days, more little things piled up. Lydia stopped wearing her engagement ring around the apartment. When I asked about it, she said it felt tight lately, like her fingers were swelling. I did not push it, but it bothered me. We used to take pictures together all the time, posting them to social media, sending them to our families. But lately, whenever I suggested a photo, she would find a reason to say no. My parents called one evening to ask about the wedding, wanting to do a video chat. Lydia suddenly remembered she had to finish something for work and disappeared into the bedroom. She was avoiding them. Avoiding everything that had to do with our future. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. When I came back to bed, I noticed the glow of Lydia's phone under the covers. She was texting someone. I asked her who she was talking to at that hour. She jumped startled and said it was just a coworker asking about a project deadline. At 2 a.m. I did not believe her, but I did not want to be that guy. The one who accuses and interrogates. So I just said, okay, and went back to sleep. But I could not actually sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. I kept asking myself if I should just cancel the wedding, if I should walk away before things got worse. But I loved her. I still loved her so much, and I could not imagine my life without her. Then came that Wednesday. It was a week before the wedding, exactly 4 weeks to the day. I had been working on a big sprint at my job, and we finished early. My manager told us we could take the rest of the afternoon off. Normally I did not get home until 6 in the evening, but that day it was only 3 in the afternoon when I pulled into our apartment complex. I did not text Lydia to let her know I was coming home early. I did not think I needed to. It was my home too. I walked up the stairs to our second-floor apartment, keys in hand. As I unlocked the door, I could hear Lydia's voice coming from the living room. She was talking to someone on the phone. Her tone was relaxed, casual, the way she used to sound with me. I almost called out to her, almost said, "Hey babe, I am home early." But then I heard her say my name. Not affectionately. Not the way someone says the name of the person they love. It was different. Flat. Clinical. And I froze. I stood there in the entryway, one hand still on the doorknob, barely breathing. My heart started pounding in my chest. Something in my gut told me to stay quiet. To listen. I hate that I did it. I hate that I stood there like some paranoid boyfriend eavesdropping on a private conversation. But I could not move. I could not make myself walk into that room and announce my presence. So I stayed in the hallway, pressed against the wall, straining to hear every word. Lydia was talking to Jessica, her best friend from college. I recognized the name because Lydia mentioned her all the time. Jessica lived in Seattle now, and they talked on the phone at least once a week. I heard Jessica's voice faintly through the speaker, though I could not make out her exact words. But I heard Lydia's responses loud and clear. Jessica must have asked how she was feeling about the wedding because Lydia went silent for a long time. In that silence, I felt my entire body tense up. I knew somehow that whatever came next was going to hurt. Then Lydia sighed. It was this deep, heavy sigh, like she was finally letting go of something she had been holding in for too long. She said, "Honestly, Jess, I do not know if I can go through with it." Her voice cracked a little, but not with sadness, with relief. Like she was finally admitting something she had been too scared to say out loud. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My legs went weak, but I stayed standing. I needed to hear more. Jessica said something, probably asking for clarification, and Lydia continued. She said, "I am not attracted to him anymore." Just like that. Plain and simple. 5 words that broke me. I am not attracted to him anymore. She kept talking and every word was a knife. It has been like this for months, she said. I do not know when it changed. Maybe around last Christmas. That was 9 months ago. 9 months. She had been feeling this way for 9 months, and never told me. Never gave me a chance to fix it, to talk about it, to even know that something was wrong. She kept going. He is a good guy, Jess. He really is. But there is no spark anymore. Every time he touches me, I feel nothing. Sometimes I feel uncomfortable. I have been avoiding him as much as I can. I was standing 10 feet away from her, listening to her describe me like I was a stranger, like I was someone she barely tolerated. I felt tears start to run down my face, but I did not make a sound. I could not. I was paralyzed. Jessica must have asked why she was still with me, why she was going through with the wedding, because Lydia's next words were even worse. She said, "I do not know how to tell him. His parents already booked their flights. My family is so excited. Everyone is expecting this perfect wedding. And Amos, he loves me so much. It would destroy him." So she knew. She knew how much I loved her, and she was using that love as a reason to keep lying to me. She said she thought maybe her feelings would come back, but they had not. She sounded so tired, so done with me, with us. Then Jessica asked the question I was too afraid to even think. "What is your plan?" And Lydia answered without hesitation. "I am just waiting for the right time to leave. After the wedding is called off, I do not know. Maybe I will move to Seattle. My company has an office there. I have already talked to my boss." Those words hit me harder than anything else. She had already talked to her boss. She had already made plans. She was already halfway out the door, and I had no idea. She continued, "I am just waiting to leave Jess. I am counting down the days. I cannot do this anymore. Living with someone I do not love. Pretending every single day is exhausting." Her voice, when she said that, when she talked about leaving me, sounded lighter, hopeful even. Like the thought of a life without me made her happy. Meanwhile, I was falling apart in the hallway, feeling like my entire world was collapsing. Everything I believed about us, about our relationship, about our future was a lie. She did not love me. She had not loved me for 9 months. The proposal, the wedding planning, the nights we spent together, all of it was fake. She was just going through the motions, waiting for the courage to leave. I do not know how long I stood there after she finished talking. It could have been 30 seconds or 5 minutes. Time felt strange, like it had slowed down and sped up at the same time. My mind was racing. 9 months. She had been lying to me for 9 months. Every time I said "I love you," and she said it back, she was lying. Every time I held her and she let me, she was uncomfortable. Every plan we made for the future, she knew she was not going to be there for it. I felt like the biggest fool in the world. How did I not see it? How did I miss all the signs? But then something shifted inside me. The grief and the shock started to harden into something else. Clarity, anger, yes, but also a strange kind of calm. I was not angry that she did not love me anymore. Feelings change. People fall out of love. I understood that. What made me furious was the lying, the months of pretending. The fact that she let me and my family plan a wedding she had no intention of going through with. She let me believe in a future that she knew did not exist. That was the betrayal. Not the loss of love, but the loss of honesty, of respect. I wiped my eyes and took a deep breath. In that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do. There was no hesitation, no second guessing, just absolute certainty. Lydia was still on the phone. I heard her say, "I just need to find the right moment, Jess. The right time to end this." And that is when I stepped into the living room. I did not knock. I did not announce myself. I just walked in. Lydia was sitting on the couch, phone pressed to her ear. When she saw me, her entire face went white. Her eyes got huge. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the floor. Jessica's voice was still coming through the speaker, asking what was going on, but Lydia was not listening anymore. She was staring at me like she had seen a ghost. I just stood there looking at her, feeling strangely calm. And then I said the only thing that mattered. The right time is now, Lydia. The silence in that room was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Lydia bent down slowly, hands shaking, and picked up her phone. I could still hear Jessica on the other end saying, "Lydia, what is happening? Are you okay?" Lydia brought the phone to her ear and whispered, "I will call you back." Then she hung up. She still had not looked at me directly. She was staring at the floor, at the couch, at anything but my face. She finally stood up, taking a step back like she was afraid of me. "When did you get home?" she asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how much I had heard. I just looked at her and said, "Does it matter?" I heard enough. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it again. She looked trapped, cornered. Good. She should feel that way. She tried again. "Look, I can explain." But I cut her off before she could finish. "Explain what?" "That you have not loved me since Christmas. That you have been lying to me for 9 months. What exactly do you want to explain, Lydia?" Her eyes filled with tears. It is not like that, she said, but her voice had no conviction. "Then what is it like?" I asked. "Tell me. Please tell me how it is." She just stood there crying, unable to answer. I felt nothing watching her cry. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her. Just emptiness. I was so tired. Tired of being lied to. Tired of loving someone who did not love me back. Tired of feeling like I was crazy for noticing that something was wrong. I took a breath and said the words I had been forming in my head since the hallway. "You said you are waiting for the right time to leave. Well, you do not have to wait anymore. I am giving you that right time. Right now." Lydia looked up at me, panic in her eyes. "Amos, please, can we talk about this?" But I shook my head. "There is nothing to talk about. You do not love me. You do not want to marry me. You are only here because you do not have the courage to leave. But I have the courage to let you go." My voice was steady, calm. I was not yelling. I was not throwing things. I was just stating facts. And in that calmness I found power. I walked over to the coffee table where Lydia had left her engagement ring earlier that day. I picked it up and held it out to her. "Keep it," I said, "or sell it. I do not care." She did not take it. "Amos, I never wanted to hurt you." Her voice was pleading, now desperate. "But you did," I said. "For 9 months you hurt me every single day by lying. I would have understood if you told me your feelings changed. I would have been hurt, yes, but I would have respected you for being honest. But you chose to lie, to waste my time, our time. You let me plan a future that you knew was not real. That is what hurts, Lydia. Not that you stopped loving me, but that you did not respect me enough to tell me the truth." She collapsed back onto the couch, crying harder now. "I am so sorry," she kept saying over and over. But her apologies felt hollow, empty, too little, too late. I did not feel satisfaction seeing her like this. I did not feel vindicated or powerful. I just felt sad. Sad for both of us. Sad for what we could have been if she had just been honest. But mostly I felt relieved. Relieved that I finally knew the truth. Relieved that I was not going to marry someone who did not want to be with me. I looked at her one more time and said, "I am staying at Marcus's place tonight." Tomorrow I will come back to get my stuff. The apartment lease is under your name, so you can stay. I will cancel the wedding venue. I will tell our families." She looked up at me, panic returning to her face. "No, Amos, let me do that." But I shook my head firmly. "No. You do not get to play the responsible one now. I will handle it. You have done enough." She asked, voice trembling. "What are you going to tell them?" I met her eyes for the first time since I walked into the room. "The truth. That you do not love me, and do not want to get married. They deserve to know the truth, even if you could not give it to me." She looked away, fresh tears streaming down her face. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me still loved her. Part of me wanted to sit down next to her and try to fix this. But I knew there was nothing to fix. You cannot fix something that one person does not want anymore. And I was not going to beg someone to love me. I had more respect for myself than that. I took one last look around the living room, the apartment we had built together, the pictures on the walls from our trips, the couch where we used to watch movies every Friday night, the kitchen where she taught me to cook. All of it felt like it belonged to a different life now, a life that was over. I turned back to Lydia and said, "I hope Seattle makes you happy, Lydia. I really do." Because clearly I could not. My voice cracked a little on those last words. Not because I was sad, but because I was letting go. And letting go is hard, even when you know it is the right thing to do. I did not wait for her to respond. I walked into our bedroom, grabbed my laptop bag, and threw in some clothes. Just enough for a few days. I could get the rest later. I heard Lydia still crying in the living room, but I did not go back to her. There was nothing left to say. I closed the bedroom door behind me, walked through the living room one more time without looking at her, and left the apartment. I closed the front door quietly. No slamming. No drama. Just a quiet ending to something that should have ended months ago. I stood in the hallway for a minute, leaning against the wall. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But underneath all of that, I felt something I had not felt in weeks. Relief. I was free. Free from the lies. Free from the pretending. Free from a relationship that had been dead for 9 months. I pulled out my phone and called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. "Can I crash at your place?" I asked. He did not ask questions. He just said, "Door is always open, bro. Come on over." I got in my car and drove to Marcus's apartment across town. I did not turn on the radio. I just drove in silence, watching the city pass by through the window. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself just feel. I felt the hurt. I felt the anger. I felt the relief. I felt all of it, and I did not try to push any of it away. By the time I pulled up to Marcus's building, I felt lighter. Like I had been carrying something heavy for months and finally put it down. The next morning, I woke up on Marcus's couch with a clear head. I knew what I had to do. First, I called the barn venue. The woman who answered was kind when I explained I needed to cancel the wedding. She said they would refund most of the deposit minus a small cancellation fee. I thanked her and hung up, one thing down. Then I called my parents. That was harder. My mom answered, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Hey, honey," she said. "What is up?" I did not sugarcoat it. "Mom, Dad," I said, knowing my father was probably nearby. "The wedding is off." There was silence on the other end. Then my mom asked what happened. "Are you okay?" I gave them the short version. "Lydia does not love me. She has not for months. I found out yesterday. I am okay, I promise. But the wedding is not happening." My mom started to cry. My dad got on the phone. "Son, I am so sorry. Do you need us to come down there?" I told them no, that I just needed some time. They said they would start calling the relatives on their side to let them know. I thanked them and hung up. I spent the rest of that day making phone calls. To the caterer, to the florist, to the DJ, to my groomsmen, to relatives who had already booked hotels. Each conversation was exhausting but necessary. Most people were kind. Some asked questions I did not want to answer. I kept my responses simple. The wedding is not happening. Lydia and I are not together anymore. Please do not ask me for details right now. By the end of the day, I was emotionally drained. But it was done. Everyone who needed to know knew. That first week at Marcus's place was rough. I barely ate. Marcus would make food and basically force me to take a few bites. "You gotta eat, man," he would say. "She is not worth starving over." I knew he was right, but eating felt impossible. Everything felt impossible. I kept replaying that conversation in my head, hearing her say she was not attracted to me anymore, that she was counting down the days until she could leave. It played on a loop in my mind, torturing me. The first night after Marcus went to bed, I sat in his living room in the dark and cried, not because I lost Lydia, but because I lost 9 months of my life believing in something that was not real, but slowly, things started to get better. Marcus made me go to the gym with him every morning. At first I hated it, but after a week I started to feel stronger. The physical exhaustion helped quiet my mind. On weekends we went hiking. Marcus knew I needed to get out of the city away from places that reminded me of Lydia. We drove out to the gorge hike trails I had never been on, sat by waterfalls and just existed. No talking, just being. And in those quiet moments, I started to heal. After 2 weeks, I found a new apartment. It was smaller than the place I shared with Lydia, a studio, in a different neighborhood. But it was mine. Only mine. I moved my stuff in, set up my space exactly how I wanted it. No compromises. No asking anyone else what they thought. It felt good. Empowering. I was building a life for myself again, one that did not depend on anyone else. I blocked Lydia on everything. Social media, phone, email. I did not want to know what she was doing. I did not want to see if she moved to Seattle. I needed to focus on myself, not on her. 3 months after that Wednesday, I was sitting in my apartment one evening playing guitar. I had started writing music again, something I had stopped doing when I was with Lydia. The songs were sad at first, processing everything I had been through. But lately they had started to sound different, hopeful almost. Marcus came over that night with pizza. We ate and talked about nothing important. At one point he looked at me and said, "You know you are smiling more now." I realized he was right. I was smiling more, laughing more. I felt more like myself than I had in over a year. I thought about those last 9 months with Lydia, how heavy everything had felt. How I was always walking on eggshells, always worried I was doing something wrong. And I realized that a relationship should not feel like that. It should not feel like work every single day. It should not make you question yourself constantly. A good relationship should make you feel alive, not exhausted. And somewhere along the way, what Lydia and I had became exhausting. I was so busy trying to hold on to something that was already gone, I did not notice how much it was costing me. I learned something important through all of this. I learned that self-respect matters more than love, more than history, more than the fear of being alone. I could have stayed with Lydia. I could have pretended I did not hear that phone call gone through with the wedding, hoped things would get better. But they would not have. And I would have spent the rest of my life with someone who did not truly want me. That is no way to live. I deserved better than that. Everyone deserves better than that. I also learned that the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a comfortable lie. Yes, it hurt to hear Lydia say those things. It broke my heart, but it also set me free. If I had not heard that conversation, I might have married her. I might have spent years in a loveless marriage before it finally fell apart. Instead, I got out early. I got the chance to start over while I was still young. While I still had time to find someone who actually wanted to be with me. Someone who would not count down the days until they could leave. Do I still think about Lydia sometimes? Yes. Not because I want her back, but because 3 years of your life does not just disappear. We had good times, real moments of happiness. But those moments do not erase the 9 months of lies. They do not make up for the disrespect of letting me plan a future she knew we would not have. I do not hate her. I did for a while, but I do not anymore. She was human. She made mistakes. Her biggest mistake was not that her feelings changed, but that she was not brave enough to tell me. And I paid the price for her cowardice. But I am not paying anymore. Now when I look back on that Wednesday afternoon, I do not see it as the worst day of my life. I see it as the day I chose myself. The day I decided that my dignity and self-respect were worth more than a relationship built on lies. Lydia said she was waiting for the right time to leave. But the truth is, there is no perfect time to do hard things. There is no moment when ending a relationship feels easy or convenient. The right time is when you know the truth and have the courage to act on it. And that Wednesday, I had that courage. I am proud of myself for walking away. Proud for not begging her to stay. Proud for not trying to convince someone to love me. Because love should not require convincing. It should not require pretending. It should be honest and real and mutual. And what Lydia and I had was none of those things. Not at the end anyway, so I let it go. And in letting it go, I found something better. I found myself again. These days I am doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I am dating again, taking things slow, learning to trust. I am working on new projects at my job. I am writing music. I am spending time with friends who genuinely care about me. I am building a life that feels authentic. A life where I do not have to wonder if the person next to me actually wants to be there. And that feels good. Really good. I do not know what the future holds. I do not know if I will get married someday, or have kids, or any of that. But I know one thing for certain. I will never again settle for someone who sees me as a burden they are waiting to escape from. I deserve better. We all do. So, if you are listening to this and you are in a relationship where you feel unwanted, where you feel like you are doing all the work, where something just feels off, trust that feeling. Do not ignore it. Do not make excuses for the other person. Have the hard conversation. Ask the difficult questions. And if the answers break, your heart let them. Because a broken heart heals. But a life lived in denial, in pretending and accepting less than you deserve, that is a wound that never closes. Choose yourself. Choose honesty. Choose dignity, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. The right time to do the right thing is now. Not tomorrow. Not when it is convenient. Not when everyone else is ready. Now. That is the lesson I learned. That is what I want to pass on to you. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes it means walking away. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. I did, and I have never regretted it. Not for a single moment. And I am proud I had that courage. Before I go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because staying would have meant losing yourself? Drop a comment below and tell me your story. I read every single one, and your experiences help others feel less alone. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And subscribe to this channel for more real stories about life, love, and finding the strength to choose yourself. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it brings you clarity if you are struggling, or peace if you have already made the hard choice to walk away. Remember, you are worthy of a love that does not require you to shrink yourself or accept lies. Stay strong, stay honest, and always choose your own happiness. Until next time, take care of yourself.